So UFOs, everyone's talking about it. There was this supposed meeting. Almost none of it actually happened the way the media or the Twitter sphere had said it actually happened. But apparently, there's aliens among us, and it upends our faith, or does it? So, well, how should we react
Yeah,
to this?
aliens are everywhere, but are they everywhere in space or just the imagination? Is it science or is it science fiction?
Hmm.
There's a point where you got to stop speculating
Hmm.
and start concluding, analyzing and concluding. And that's where I'd like to help people get more towards.
Hmm.
Now, as far as the most recent thing, I was very disappointed to hear some pastors making some stuff up. Trust is very important in a pastor position. So that was the most disturbing of the whole thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
As far as their claims, um, a friend of mine, psychiatrist, he's out in Troy, William Guy,
Hmm.
he predicted this about 20 years ago. And at the time, I was like, what are you talking about? But it was pretty insightful. What happened was, I had just given some evidence as far as supporting Christianity, and that the Bible is the only source we have that there's some verifiable evidence that there's a God behind it. And I was telling him, it just seems so strong. I don't see how people are going to get around this. And then we talked about the kind of post-truth culture, and that can kind of fight it a little bit. But he said, what's going to come eventually are aliens. I was like, what are you talking about?
Hmm.
And he said, think about it. If you want to deceive, if you want to basically go after the Christian claim and you don't have the scientific evidence, you basically say, okay, that evidence is there, but God is just a super advanced alien bully
Hmm.
that we're going to have to resist. And I
Hmm.
said, ooh, that would be a good tactic. I
Hmm.
mean, if you had another version of screw tape letters, I think that would have been an excellent one because if you bring in the idea of aliens that way, you can effectively deal with the evidence and then also lead people to resist God instead of,
Hmm.
opening their arms.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and it even starts to get to that. I think for me, that whole if there's these other beings out here, then you're not all that special. It's the whole Copernican principle again. Because you're not all that special, then God. So it even questions it that way, which is a lot of times. I know we were talking about the California monk Seraphim Rose
Yes.
earlier, who kind of talked about this and talked about like sci-fi being this like in a lot of not Battlestar Galactica, which you just told me about, but in a lot of
Which everyone should
sci-fi,
watch. Yeah.
it's sort of you get out there and you're kind of finding that it's just a lot of beings. Some have special powers, some don't,
Hmm.
but there's not really like a god over this.
Hmm.
It's kind of a I don't know, a lot of times dystopian. A lot of places they're going, there seems to be sort of a purposelessness to
Yeah.
it other than survival.
Right. Well. One of the things I think that's important to start at the outset is why should we be worried
Hmm.
about this? Because the hype, Scott, as they talked about it, was there's this meeting where government people are bringing together pastors so that they can be informed about the classified information that's being disclosed and declassified, so they can prepare their people. Meaning, the pastors can warn their people that your faith is going to be shaken and upended. So the question then becomes, why would the existence of aliens actually upend the Christian faith, or, for that matter, at least give some people pause about whether or not we should take the Bible seriously? There might be a God if there are aliens, but why is the Bible called into question? So that's really the issue, right? I mean, the reason why we're having this episode is, one, to talk about what did the declassified files actually reveal, and two, so what? Why should anybody care? And does it really, for the skeptic, does it really undermine Christianity? And for the Christian, does it undermine Christianity at all? I can think of some reasons why it might, but what do we think?
So there's a couple reasons that we should care about this whole alien issue. One reason is global investment. We're putting billions of dollars every year into SETI, search for extraterrestrial intelligence. There's a lot of equipment, and we're investing not just resources, but intellectual power. We're putting a lot of things into that. Now, it could have some people also have their beliefs and hope tied into it. Carl Sagan, he felt humanity had no chance to save itself. So what he was waiting for, and he confided with some people on this, is he wanted the Encyclopedia Galactica. I think Isaac Asimov was probably the first one to mention this, where all these advanced aliens put all their best knowledge together in these encyclopedias, and this will help us learn how to survive this world, and transhumanism and all that stuff. And then finally, if these aliens, if they come out and they're, the idea, if people are getting convinced of aliens, then you can start looking at the evidence that supports Christianity as really just evidence for aliens. And you're already starting to see some of this stuff in the movies. For example, in Ridley Scott's Aliens films, where you have the engineers, they're the ones that seeded life through their DNA that already existed. The Supernatural series, which this is a picture of, you have God was just some author, a bad author, writing into people's lives, and he was kind of just a dictator bully to be resisted. So these are the kind of dangers that could happen. Now, if you have just a good understanding of the Bible and evidence for it, though, none of these should threaten you. Because first of all, we know that you need, because the universe had a beginning, the cause of that universe has to be outside of all of nature. So that's beyond all matter, energy, space, time, before time or any of the universe began. So no aliens fit into that. You need the properties that we found out of the cause of the universe fit precisely what the Bible predicted millennia earlier. So with that in mind, the idea of aliens isn't going to really hurt the Christian evidence unless people are ignorant of it. Then they'll buy into what the movies are showing them, and then it becomes a problem.
Well, one of the things that I think that people will think through in terms of like, oh, is this a problem? Is this something we should worry about with regard to not theism generally, but Christian theism specifically, is if there are aliens, the Bible never mentions them. And you'd think that if God had created other beings somewhere else, the Bible would have mentioned them. And then people say, well, maybe they did. Maybe the sons of God who knew the daughters of men and created the Nephilim and all this. Maybe that's exactly what this is, which of course isn't super explicit about it because it doesn't say other worlds. It doesn't mention all that. So there's attempts to explain the biblical data by saying if we encounter aliens, there could be explanations within the biblical record like that. And I worry a little bit that that's going to take the text further than it allows, only because we have to fit it into sort of a newspaper theology.
I agree.
Yeah, but there's also the question about, before we get into the evidence about whether or not there are in fact aliens or not, and what these sightings could actually be. One of the worries is theological, is that if Christ died for humanity as our representative, which is why he takes on human form, lives a life we can't live, dies a death we can't afford to die, to give us a heaven we actually don't deserve to have, and he is, as a man, representative of all of humanity, as Adam was in one sense. Does he die for aliens if they look fundamentally different than us, if they're a different kind of life form altogether? And Jesus rose bodily as a human being. What does that say? Did Jesus really die for those creatures as well? And how can he be their representative if he's just our representative? And that makes God seem kind of parochial because he picked this one tiny blue dot kind of a thing. So that's kind of the challenge, is that there's more of a theological salvific problem. Who did Jesus really die for? And if aliens show up, then does that suggest that, well, we thought he died for us because, we needed to be special, and now we know we're not, so he didn't die for us or anybody for that matter. That's kind of where I think this goes a little bit. I don't know. I'd love both of you guys to get some reaction on that, what you guys think are some of the issues.